Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the heart of a brilliantly biting socioeconomic satire. It's born from a classic set of song lyrics that beautifully and honestly tragically captures the universal struggle of the educated, unemployed youth. If you've ever wondered how art can hold a mirror up to our deepest societal flaws, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to deconstruct this masterpiece lyric by lyric and really get into how the writer uses dark humor, cultural references, and just sheer frustration to paint a vivid picture of a generation left behind by the very system that promised to uplift them. Okay, so let's get right into this opening line because it immediately sets the tone for everything we're about to talk about. The lyric translates to, "There's no food anyway, just sing a song, brother." It presents this fundamental, almost cruel paradox. I mean, think about it. Singing is normally an expression of joy, right? Of celebration or having a full stomach. But here the protagonist is telling their friend to sing specifically because they're starving. It's a total defense mechanism. When you're stripped of your basic needs, when there is literally no food on the plate, what else is left but to just laugh at the absurdity of it all? This hook tells us right out of the gate, we aren't getting a weeping tragedy here. We're getting a sharp, darkly comedic critique of poverty. Which brings us to our first theme, hunger and satire. This next lyric really brings that bitter irony to life. It translates to, "Every street in the capital city is yours and mine, brother." Now, on the surface, that sounds like a grand declaration of civic pride, right? Like, hey, you own the capital. But the underlying reality, it's devastating. The protagonist is claiming ownership over every street in the city simply because they're homeless. They have no house, no private space at all. So, by default, they belong to the streets, and the streets belong to them. It takes the horrific reality of vagrancy and dresses it up in the language of a conquering king. It really forces us to look at how we sometimes romanticize the struggles of the urban poor. Moving right along to theme 2, independence versus reality. Now, we're presented with an incredibly grim metaphor. In an independent country, even death is like a wedding. Let that sink in. What does it actually mean to be independent or free if you're completely chained down by poverty? The writer is suggesting that in this so-called free nation, life's everyday struggles are so insurmountable that death isn't even a tragedy anymore. It's a release. It's a liberation to be celebrated with the exact same festive joy as a wedding. When a society hits a point where its young, educated citizens view death as the ultimate joyous escape from economic misery, well, the whole concept of national independence is totally called into question. And that seamlessly leads us into theme 3, great history, zero future. So, the crucial point here is how the song builds up this grand, sweeping illusion of the nation using majestic historical titles. It calls the motherland Annapurna, the ultimate provider of endless food. It uses Veda Bhumi, meaning the sacred land of ancient knowledge and wisdom, and it points to the mighty Himalayas as a symbol of towering fame and unshakable pride. These are the exact narratives fed to the youth from day one, right? They're taught to take immense pride in this rich heritage, fully expecting that a land of such legendary abundance will naturally provide for them. But as we'll see, these ancient titles are on a collision course with modern economics. And here is where the reality crash hits hard. On one side, we have this boastful claim, our mother is Annapurna, the goddess of nourishment. But on the other side, the physical reality, we are begging. We have a nation hailed as the ultimate provider of food, and yet its very own youth are forced to wander the streets with begging bowls, literally asking for scraps. It really highlights the hypocrisy of a society that aggressively markets its past glories while entirely neglecting its present crises. Because at the end of the day, you can't eat history, and you definitely can't pay rent with ancient wisdom. The next line emphasizes that painful disconnect even further. The golden harvest is ours, but we come home to swat flies. A golden harvest implies massive agricultural and economic wealth, right? A booming economy that supposedly belongs to the citizens. Yet, what are the educated youth actually doing all day? Sitting idle at home, swatting flies. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of complete economic stagnation on an individual level, entirely walled off from the macroeconomic wealth of the country. The youth are just spectators to the country's prosperity. They aren't participants in it at all. All right, let's explore theme 4, degrees and unemployment. Let's walk through this sequence because it perfectly maps out the broken pipeline these young people experience. First, there's this intense, cutthroat struggle just to get into the education system. No seat to study. But okay, let's say you survive that. You get the degree. Then comes step 2, no job after studying. That degree, which was promised to be your golden ticket to prosperity, turns out to be a totally worthless piece of paper in a stagnant job market. It's the modern equivalent of sending out 100 resumes and hearing absolutely nothing but crickets. And that inevitably leads to step 3, no food to eat. The youth are systematically failed at literally every single stage. That basic social contract, the one that says, study hard and you'll be rewarded, has just been completely shredded. There is some serious, biting sarcasm in this next claim. We are the future citizens to rule the country. We've all heard this, right? It's the cliche every politician and teacher feeds the younger generation. But the narrator is saying this while holding a begging bowl, possessing a useless degree, and starving in the street. The sheer absurdity of calling these desperate, marginalized individuals the future rulers of the nation is palpable. It completely exposes the hollow rhetoric of leadership when the foundational needs of those future leaders are just ignored. Take a second to really absorb this next question. Is it our fault to be born in this holy land? This represents the absolute climax of frustration in the song. When you follow all the rules, get your degree, and still end up starving, you eventually stop blaming yourself. You start questioning your very existence. The narrator is actually asking if the mere act of being born in this deeply revered holy land is a curse. It's a profound moment of existential despair, completely disguised as a simple question. To cope with this massive systemic failure of the state, they absurdly try to shift the blame down to the micro level, to their parents. They jokingly ask if it's their mom and dad's fault for not controlling their passions and bringing them into this terrible economy in the first place. It is dark, it's funny, but honestly, it mostly shows how desperately the unemployed mind searches for a reason, any reason, for their suffering, when the government and the economy just fail to provide answers. And finally, we arrive at theme 5, leaving it to God. Here, the lyricist takes a deeply cultural concept and completely flips it on its head. The lyric advises the youth to wear saffron. Now, traditionally, wearing saffron and renouncing the world is a sacred spiritual choice made by ascetics who are seeking enlightenment. But here, the writer turns it into a sarcastic, forced exit strategy. You aren't renouncing the world because you've achieved some high spiritual superiority. You're renouncing it because society has entirely abandoned you, and you literally have zero other options for survival. It turns a holy act into the ultimate symbol of socioeconomic defeat. So the crucial takeaway from this lyric is the protagonist's final act of giving up. Leave the burden to God and break ties, brother. After fighting for an education, struggling to find a job, and wandering the streets of the free capital, there is nothing left to do but throw your hands in the air. It's the ultimate resignation. If the state won't take care of its citizens, and the economy won't provide, then survival is just left entirely to fate, to God. It's an incredibly powerful indictment of a government that forces its people to rely on divine intervention just to get their next meal. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. We've looked at the sting of this classic satire, the broken educational pipelines, and that massive gap between grand history and bleak reality. But the most important question is this: have the socioeconomic conditions for the educated, unemployed youth genuinely changed today? When we look at modern job markets, the massive struggles of recent graduates, and the soaring cost of living, have we actually fixed that broken pipeline, or are we still just walking the streets singing a song with an empty stomach? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you and never stop learning.